do love this weather.
Oh, yeah.
I love fall. It's my most favorite season of all of them. I mean, spring is beautiful, everything's blooming, but fall is, I can go play in the yard and not sweat to death. I can go hike. I just love fall. Ken, on the other hand, hates fall. So we have this disagreement all the time. Because he goes, oh, fall means it's getting cold. You know, he's kind of like a lizard or a snake. He loves the heat. So we disagree on that one. But today we're here to talk about pests in the yard, which I can tell just from the few conversations we've had, it's an issue in our area. We have, I could probably keep going, but I know there's deer, javalina, rabbits, gophers, pack rats, mice. What am I missing? There's all kinds of squirrels, chipmunks. The list kind of goes on and on. But because we live in such a beautiful, desirable place, our animals want to live here too. So, and a lot of us are on the forests, or we're in the urban wildlife interface areas. Even I, who lives up above the high school up in Eagle Ridge, we get javalina. We're dealing with gophers. Downtown, you can drive downtown sometimes and you'll see a herd of javalina coming across the road. Oh yeah. So it doesn't really matter where you're at, you're going to have some kind of pest issues. It's just what we deal with. Is there any one method for getting rid of them? No. And there's nothing that is 100 proof. So what I'm going to give you is suggestions, ideas, things to try, but you just got to realize it's not going to be 100%. So we just hope for the best a lot of time. But there's techniques we can use, things we can plant that really make a difference in the yard for us. I handed out the javalina list, and I handed out the deer and rabbit list. So on the javalina list, so this list was made 10, 15 years ago, maybe even longer. And we haven't made the changes, and we need to. But you'll notice on that list, we actually have pansies listed. Well, javalina have really developed a taste for pansies. So what we're finding is animals change their dietary habits depending upon where they're at. So just because they never used to eat them, they eat them now. I think some of this comes from, when they were originally in the area, we had a different variety of plants out there. So they were eating a different variety, but they hadn't seen a pansy yet, so they hadn't really developed a taste for pansies. Now, the little ones, as they grow up, they go, oh, well, we don't have this, but we have pansies, so we're going to start eating pansies. It's like your kids when they're little, and they don't know, they're not supposed to like carrots and beans and that kind of stuff yet, so they develop a taste for it. So even though the lists are helpful, they're not 100%. And the other thing that you'll find is what's on the javalina list does not always cross-reference what's on the deer and rabbit list. So if you have both in the yard, you even have a little bit smaller selection of plants that you can go with. So I guess what I'm trying to get across is it's going to be a multi-pronged attack is what we're going to do to get rid of the critters. So I think we'll just start with the big ones and go down to the little ones. That way we have a reference to go to. So deer, how many of you are dealing with deer in the yard? About half of you, okay. So the thing with deer is they forage according to smell. So it's not so much they're seeing that strawberry out in the field or the blueberries, it's the smell that they're going after. So you've got some options with deer. The first one is fencing. But if you're going to fence out a deer, you need about a 6 to 8 foot fence. They can clear a 6 foot fence. Trust me, I've seen them do it. We used to live out in Skull Valley. And one year we had this brilliant idea. We were going to grow pumpkins to bring into the store. So we had pumpkins, we had corn, we had everything going. And one morning we came out and there was nothing. And we had a 6 foot fence. They can jump a 6 foot. You almost have to go 8 foot. If you have elk, I'm sorry, there's no help for you, because elk can jump really high, plus they just knock things down. So if you're fencing, think tall. If you're not going to fence, your next barrier that you're going to go with is kind of be that two-pronged attack, which is planting things that they're least likely to eat, and then also using repellents. The thing with, since deer are so, they like the smell, that's what they're searching out, the smell, we want to put repellents out there that they're gonna go, I don't like that smell, I'm just gonna move on to the neighbor's house because they don't have that smell. So there's two different thoughts when it comes to deer. So this is Repellzol. This one smells like nobody's business. It is garlic, putrefied egg. It's nasty. This is not what you want to be spraying by your front door, trust me. If you're going to spray it, use it further out in your yard. You really don't want it so much by your sitting areas. It does dissipate, but let me tell you, it's strong. The other recommendation I have, if you're going to spray this, is wear gloves. You don't want that on your hands. You'll be smelling it for a while with that one. So that's a liquid repellent. This one's deer off or deer stopper. So this works on herb smells. So it's rosemary, clove, cinnamon, which I like the smell of that. It always reminds me of Old Spice whenever I smell it. So to us, it's not very offensive. So if you have problems closer up to your house, I would recommend going with this one because we don't find it offensive, but they do. So they just kind of move on. Sometimes what you'll find is you need to flip-flop back and forth because they do get used to a certain smell. So if you've been spraying this for a while, you might just shake it up a little bit and spray this one because you don't want them to get used to any one thing. So you probably have to go between the two on it. With your deer, the sprays are the most effective because they're actually eating the foliage. So you can't really particularly use these in a vegetable garden, but you can certainly use them around your trees, your shrubs, your lawns. And it's not that you have to spray the entire plant down, but you need to spray, around them, some of the foliage. We just want that smell where they go, it's not very good, I'm gonna move on to other things. The granulars do not really work with the deer. The other thing you want to think about is your planting. So you got to find things that they don't like, which I have to say in spring, when they're coming out of winter and the moms are trying to feed babies and they want to eat, they're hungry.
Yeah,
there isn't much, they're not going to try. So it's sometimes you may have to just fence an individual shrub or tree that they're particularly going after. But I have seen them eat things that they would not normally even touch, but they're hungry. Like we were saying, it's midnight, you're up, you're hungry, there isn't much you're going to not eat. Because that granola bar that's been sitting in the cupboard for 6 months, you're like, okay, I'll eat it. Well, the deer is doing the same thing. They're just hungry. So that early spring pressure is intense, and there's really no way around that. But the plants, I think that when I gave you the list, there's things that they won't go after, and there's really, you kind of go, well, why? What's the deal with that particular plant? I couldn't tell you, and they're not talking to us to tell us why they don't go after it. But certain things like the nandina, they typically don't bother it. They leave it alone. And I have to show you this one while we're talking nandina. This is a new variety of nandina we got in. It's called Tuscan Fire. Yeah, red it is. Isn't that beautiful? I just had to show it to you because I think it's a beautiful plant, and especially for your fall plantings right now. If you think in fall color, that's terrific. Junipers. Everybody goes, oh, I hate junipers. I have so many junipers. I hate them. I hate the way they smell. I hate the way they look. I hate the way they feel. Well, the deer don't like them either. Junipers can be a really good addition, especially maybe on the where the deer are starting to come into your yard. This could be a really good plant to put out there that's just going to keep them moving on. You want them to go on to the neighbors. You don't want them to stop in your yard. So junipers are a really good resistant plant, also for javalina, also for bunnies. It's just a plant that they don't like, and I think junipers get a bad rap. It's not your ornamental junipers that are causing your allergies. It's the native junipers that are here. So I don't see, and they kind of have, like, this is sea of gold. Yeah, sea of gold. The new growth, it kind of has that yellowy gold look to it. I think it's very pretty, especially out in the yard, because it's got that touch of color that draws your eye to it. So don't disregard junipers just because you think you don't like them, because they can be a valuable addition into the landscape. Things that have prickers, sticky. So this one is Oregon grape holly, or mahonia. So there again, it's got the prickies on the leaves. Well, they don't want that in their mouth either. That kind of hurts, so they're not going to be as like now. They might, when you have some new tender growth on the edges, they might want to come through and nibble that, but as soon as that growth matures, they're going to move on and not mess with it anymore. So, but anything that's got that real stickery holly, your other hollies, are also a good thing that they really typically won't eat. That's a good choice. Then we get into your herbs. So deer don't like, they're getting that strong scented herby smell that we're getting in here. They don't particularly care for your plants that are herbed either. So lavender, rosemary, sages, thyme. Thyme is another one. And actually, the autumn joy seed, or sage. No, it's not autumn joy. What is it, Paul?
Autumn sage.
Too many words for this one. But this is in the herb family. That's why they typically leave it alone. The same with the purple sage. Why? I'm having brain lapse this morning. Russian sage, thank you. So that's in that herb family, so they typically leave it alone. They don't like the smell, they're going to move on. The other thing you can do, if you're putting out a plant that they kind of roses, they love roses, they find them very desirable. Well, if you're just dying to have a rose in your yard, I would recommend putting plants around it that they don't like. So if you're going to put a rose there, put some lavender around it, put some germander around it, put some thyme or sage around it. That's going to keep, they want the smell. If they don't like the smell, they're going to keep moving on. So if you're determined to put something in that they're going to eat, fence it or put some other plants around it right away. That's the other thing I recommend. If you're putting something in that you think they might like, spray it right away with a repellent, because they're very much animals of habit. So if they go, oh, that smells like moving on, what you want them to learn is, oh, I don't like the smell, I'm just not going to go back to that. So anytime you put something new in the yard, plant something new, I do recommend you spray it right away. And that just teaches them, oh, I'm really not even going to go check that out.
But you mentioned germander, but I don't see it on the list. Is it got a different name or something?
It might not be on that list. But as I said, that's not all-encompassing list.
Back to the Nandina, how big does that get?
So there's a couple of varieties of Nandina. The traditional Nandina domestica gets 5 to 8 feet tall. This one right here is Gulfstream. This gets about 3 to 3.5 foot tall. Gulfstream. And the new one, the Tuscan Fire, gets about 3 foot by 3 foot as well. Now, I usually say the society garlic, but I heard someone say the deer were eating your society garlic.
Wow. Incredible.
Since they ate one, then apparently didn't want the other one.
They tried one and went, not
They
so
ate
good.
it all before that.
Right. Typically, society garlic is one that they'll also stay away from. I would tell you, do not plant this by your front door, because it does smell. I mean, unless you like spaghetti sauce, Italian cooking, maybe you like it, I don't know. But it does get very stinky. We had it in a pot up by our front door. because it's very pretty with the little purple flowers on it. And it was, I don't know, it had gotten cold. It was probably November, December. And we kept walking out the front door going, what's that smell? What's that smell? I can't figure out what that smell is. Looking for dead things. Even the UPS man was going, oh, what's that smell? I'm like, what is it? I finally go, oh my gosh, it's the society garlic. It had gone kind of dormant, but it was still kind of just in the cooler temperatures. We're keeping the smell there. Oh, it was nasty. So great for out in the yard. Don't put it up by your front door. Okay, we're going to move on from, well, before we move on from here. Okay, so this is bird netting. But if you have aspens, birch trees, maples, those trees out in your yard, the deer like to come rub on them, or they're eating the bark off of them, this is a really inexpensive way to keep them off of your trees. Just cut some pieces of it and just wrap it around the tree. You can either staple it in, the tree's not going to care, or tie it on. And they don't like the feel of that, on their antlers or in their mouth. So they're just going to move on. So great for aspens because they love aspens, they love the birch. So inexpensive way to deal with it. You can also get that plastic fencing and wrap that too. And one other thing, I had not heard of this before and I had not tried it. Some of you should try it, let me know how it works. They said if you have a bush that they're going after, you can take fishing line or that monofilament and just wrap it around it a few times, and it kind of just throws them off because they're not used to that, so they just go, what is that, and they move on. So I have not tried it myself. Anybody tried that? Did it work?
The first time I didn't wrap it tight enough, or they just broke through it. Second, now it's wrapped and
You leave it alone?
yeah, but I had too much slack in it the first time.
So you gotta wrap
I
it
just kind
tight.
of stepped on it.
They went, we should do it.
Kind of moved it.
So wrap it tight on there.
And they haven't
That's
bothered
good
it
to know.
since it's tight.
Wonderful. Okay, so that could be a good choice, especially if you have a certain shrub that they keep going after, wrapping it with that fishing line. And sometimes it's like I said, the multi-pronged approach. You're going to use your repellents, you're going to plant plants they don't like, trying the filament. The other thing you can do is, it will lose its effectiveness after a while, but putting things out in the yard that move, because they're kind of skittish. So any of those banners that move, the whirligigs, this is the iridescent tape. You can tie it in a few places around the yard. It will work for a while. It won't work forever because they'll get used to seeing it and they go, yeah, I've seen that, done that, and it doesn't scare me anymore. The scarecrow, the water scarecrows, they're effective for a while, but they get to the point where they go, oh, I've seen that, done that. It doesn't scare me. So it's that multi-pronged approach you're going to have to go for. Any questions on deer? Okay. Let's move on to rabbits, because it's pretty much the same with rabbits. A lot of the sprays are the same. The animal stopper, deer and rabbit repellent. There again, you can use the stinky stuff, you can use the good smelling stuff, but you probably want to rotate it. Planting, that's where your plants come in, very important too. They don't like the herb, anything in the herb family. The other thing with rabbits, and somewhat with deer, is they don't like things that have a fuzzy leaf. So this is lamb's ear. It's got a very soft leaf. I love to touch it. It's very, very soft. But think about it. Would you want to eat that? It's going to get stuck in your throat. Well, they have the same issue. They don't want things that are real fuzzy. They don't want things that have a rough leaf to them. So this is a sage, another variety of sage. But when you touch the leaf, it's very rough. It's almost got a sandpapery feel to it. Well, they don't want to be eating sandpaper any more than you want to be eating sandpaper. So things that have that rough edge or the fuzzy edge, things that have a strong scent. So this is dianthus or carnation. There again, we love the smell. It has that kind of clovey smell to it. They don't. So things that have that smell, that feel, that texture, those are the things you want to plant in your yard. The other thing with rabbits, this is where you can actually use some of your granulars because particularly this one, it's got the clove and stuff in it. So rabbits are preening animals. So they're using their, I was going to say hands, between their hands. They're using their paws to wipe their face and do different things. So if they get this on them, on their feet, and then they go to preen, they don't like that. So they learn to stay out of an area. This is true of squirrels, chipmunks, to some extent mice and rats. So you just want to irritate them. The whole point of the repellents is just to irritate them and get them to move on. So you could use around your vegetable bed. Probably, I don't know if you want to use it inside your bed. Use it as a perimeter to deter them from going into your vegetable bed.
Does that give off a smell to humans?
It's got a smell, but it's not I like the smell. It's very, like you're cooking a pumpkin pie or something. You know, it's got that clove and rosemary kind of smell to it. To us, I don't think it's disturbing. Unless you're very, very sensitive. In which case, I'm mine. But that's where you can start using your granulars. As I say, so, if you're going to fence for rabbit, so you need a fence. It's probably 3 to 4 foot tall. But you also need to bury it, because rabbits will dig, and they'll go right under that fence. So if you're going to fence them out of a garden, just make sure you're getting it under the ground too, and then up high enough that they're not going to jump over it. Chicken wire tends to be enough to keep them out. The other thing they recommended, and I haven't tried it, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but they said if you have a big enough yard, and you want to put a little patch of alfalfa or clover in a spot, because they love alfalfa and they love clover. So if they've got something they want to nibble on, they're going to leave everything else alone. So if you got the space, like I said, you might try it. It's kind of that multi-prong thing that we're going for. The other thing, I should have mentioned it with deer, and I'll mention it with rabbit too, and it's true for javelina as well. If you have apple trees, any kind of fruit tree, and also in your garden, if those apples and the fruit are falling and just on the ground, well, that's an invitation to have a pest come in. So they like the apples too, they like peaches, they like all that stuff. So if you have fruit on the ground from your trees, pick it up right away. Keep your berries harvested, keep your veggies harvested, because that's an invitation for them to come in when they see and smell the fruits. So I should have mentioned that, and I did it. But it's very true for rabbits as well. If you know they're going after certain fruits, keep them harvested. Sometimes you can't always beat them. They get there before you do. But don't let them lay on the ground, because that's certainly an invitation. So rabbits are kind of similar to the deer. Like I said, the rabbit-resistant limb. There's Vincent. He escaped. Vincent, come here. This is my dog, Vincent. He comes in and helps us up the store. So if he annoys you, just tell him to go away. So
He's
Vincent
cool.
will lay down.
He's totally cool.
But speaking of critters you got to fight for fruit for, he loves strawberries, he loves blackberries, he loves tomatoes. So we have to constantly fight him for the fruit, because he's always going after it. But that's another, I see him and I'm thinking about it. If you have a dog, letting your dog out in that area periodically, because then rabbits are going to go, they might have the dog come out. So my dog, I have 3 dogs, they frequently kind of come out to the front. The backyard's fenced, so we don't worry too much for rabbit and deer on that. But the front yard's pretty much open. But I let the dogs come out with me fairly frequently. If I'm walking out, I take the dogs out with me. Well, I got a lot of rabbits in my neighborhood. Let me tell you, I see them everywhere, especially when we're walking. I see them over in the neighbor's yard sitting there. The rabbits never come into my yard. And I think it's because I'm out there with my dogs. And whenever I'm out, I take them with me, so they're never quite sure when those 3 dogs are going to come out or not. So, not that that's, it's just another way to kind of keep those animals, those pesky animals out of your yard. Is there any questions on rabbits? We gave you the rabbit and deer resistant list. Most of those are pretty similar. There again, the taste, smell, planting.
So on the animal stopper, I'm thinking I have several rose bushes in the front, and the squirrels have been, or maybe rabbits too, in those little succulent, juicy
Right.
growth comes on,
Right.
and they're just nipping it off. And so to put that out when the first growth comes, and if we get heavy rains or anything,
You'll need to reapply.
you just
Yeah.
have to reapply.
Yeah, I mean, it
So you're not
starts-
mixing it in, it's just
No.
like a little perimeter.
Right, and it will dissipate over time, so you do need to reapply. The other thing I should mention, especially with your spray-ons, it will change the color of your flowers. And it kind of, it's kind of one of those things, do I want the flower, do I care about the color? Maybe you just want to spray the foliage more than the flowers because it will change that look of the flower. It's not the most attractive. But using the granulars, spreading it out too, so you're not spraying it on the plants, but keeping that smell there just to keep them moving on. But all of your repellents have to be reapplied, especially after a rain. I think most of them say like 30 days or something like that. You need to reapply. Okay, deer rabbits, yes.
Will the stopper, will that affect my dogs and cats?
To an extent. So we haven't had a dog and cat repellent, but I've had people try this. I say take it home, try it, let me know how it works. People have been pleasantly surprised at how well it works. So especially if you have an area like in your front yard where people are walking your dogs and they're coming into your yard, or the neighbor's cat is coming into your yard, we find it to be effective. There again, because especially with cats, because cats are preening animals too, well, they don't like to get that on their feet. So they just kind of stay out of an area. We are bringing in next spring from the same line, one that's actually a dog and cat one. So, but I would definitely try this. A lot of reports say it works and works well. With rabbits, you can also use blood meal. This you could use in your vegetable garden with no problem at all. This is an organic. So the blood meal has that smell to them that goes, oh dear, something was, my friend was murdered in this yard. I smell it. I better not come in. So this could be an organic use, so you can use it in your vegetable gardens. There again, maybe you want to mix it up. You want to use this, you want to use that, use some of the stinky stuff. You just got to mix it up so they don't get used to it. Okay, deer, rabbit, good. Javalina. Okay. Javalina are a whole other creature. They're stinky, they're mean. They're just, I know the little babies look so cute. You go, oh, look at the little babies. But they don't care what they destroy. They're non-specific. They're omnivorous, so they eat bugs, they eat fruit, they eat leaves. They don't care what they eat. Sometimes they just rip things out of the ground just because they're having a bad day. I don't know. Javalina, what I can say is if your feet, the trick with Javalina is we never want to put anything in our yard that encourages them to come in or want to come into your yard or investigate your yard. So there again, any fruit that's dropping, make sure you're picking it up. Bird feeders, if you have bird food out in your yard, you're feeding the birds on the ground at all particularly, you might as well just put up a sign that says, welcome, please come in and eat things out of my yard, because they love bird food. So they're gonna come in for that. Certain things that they absolutely adore, one is tulips. So tulips are like crack cocaine to Javalina. Once they get the taste, they're going to search out your entire yard. And they may dig up your entire yard looking for that tulip. So just don't even put them in the yard. What was the other thing? Oh, so they like to eat grubs and other insects that are in the soil. So if you see a lot of digging in your soil, you may have some grubs in there. So get rid of the grubs, get rid of those soil insects that they are going after. Skunk will also dig for grubs. So if you see a lot of holes, especially in your lawn and other areas, you're like, what is doing that? You may have a grub issue, so check for that. So keeping the yards as clean as possible, keeping things out of the yard that don't need to be there. There's so many people that are, and this is true of the deer too, they're feeding them because they like to see them come through for whatever reason. So they're feeding them. Well, you're not helping the animal out by feeding, and it just creates havoc for everybody else in your neighborhood. So don't feed them, don't put the bird food out. Plant, the list that I gave you, like I said, is not 100 proof. We're finding they're eating things that they didn't used to eat. We have a little new office across the street that we've been planting with all kinds of things, and we're testing it to see what do they like, what do they don't like. So we had put in some yuccas, some red yuccas. With that one, they won't bother those. Oh my gosh, they came in and ripped the snot out of it. You know, why they went after the yucca and not something else, I don't know. Only they know. But it's going to be one of those, you're going to have to try it. What I would say, if you have a lot of javelina in your yard, it's true of the other pests too, start with one plant and kind of see how it does. You know, you don't want to spend $60 on some wonderful plant that you just love, but you know it's out in the open where the javelina can get to it. Start with something smaller, maybe something, just one of it, to see how the javelina treat it in your yard. You know, they may just, the first night it's there, come in and destroy it. They may just walk right on by it. A lot of people think, oh, I'll put my notes, and I don't know what I'm saying. They'll put prickly pear. It's okay, don't worry about it. I don't need it. So prickly pear and succulents and sedums, they love those because they have a strong moisture content in them. So they will actually eat prickly pear and not care. So it tells you something about that critter. You know, they're not too specific about what they will eat and won't eat. We just have to try and put it in things that we hope they're not going to like. They're repellents for javelinas. So this is the one for the javelina you need to use. And I would have to say, sometimes it keeps them out, sometimes it has no effect at all. The trick with using this is, if you know how they're coming into your yard, if they have a specific path, which they frequently do, have a specific path that they're coming into your yard, putting this along that path disrupts their smell. So javelina can't see. I mean, they can't see anything at all, but they have an incredible sense of smell. So if we disrupt their smelling process, they're going to go, I'm kind of lost here, not sure, maybe I'll just move on. So that helps in that regard. Electric fencing. So when we first moved into our house, we had a heck of a problem with javelina because there's kind of a wash that comes up by the neighbor's house. So they were just coming up through that and hunting through the neighborhood. The electric fencing, now I'm not a I don't want to hurt anything, but I'm not sure you can hurt javelina besides using a shotgun. But if you put the electric fencing about a foot off the ground, that is high enough for them to actually hit their noses on it, and they kind of go, whoop, okay, I'm going to move on. Ken loves to put, I don't know how I feel about this, but Ken loves to put, he'll put peanut butter on a piece of foil and then wrap it on the wire because they're attracted to the peanut butter. So they go to get the peanut butter and then they're like, whoa, okay, I'm going to move on. But you don't have to run the electric fencing all the time. If you just run it at night, in the evening, into the morning where you know they're out, that way you're not running it during the day when you're out. Every once in a while, we had it on a timer, and if you had a storm or something, we'd mix up the timer. Yeah. I was out there weeding one day, and I was like, oh my God, Dad, I'm going to kill you. So yeah, you do have to be a little careful with it, but it is very, very effective for keeping those javelina out and moving on. We rarely have javelina come into our yard anymore, but we haven't had the fence up for probably 3 years now. It doesn't mean that they won't come back in ever, but they've kind of just moved on. They're like, okay, we don't want to go there. They're habitual animals, so they haven't learned to come into my yard, so they just keep moving on. Plants, here again, things that are fuzzy leafed, they don't like the fuzzies. Smell, not so much with them. It's more texture and feeling with the javelina, because they're not very discriminatory about taste. or smell, they just don't care. But that fuzzy leaf, that rough leaf, and actually iris, and stay away from iris. So if you got a spot where you're just like, I don't know, put some iris in. Every once in a while they'll dig them up, but you just pop them back in the ground and they'll be fine. The javelina, it's going to be, it has to be a multi-pronged thing, like I said before. It's going to be a few things to try and keep them out. They don't really care if there's things out in your yard. They don't care if you let your dog out in the yard, especially if you've got a mama. She's protecting her babies. Be careful. They can be mean, and they can very, very hard on small dogs. So you have to be careful with Javalina. I don't mess with them too much. They're out in the yard. I know that's not very helpful, or a lot of ideas with the Javalina. You just want to teach them to move on. My yard's not a place you want to hang out. Just move on. Just move on. So it's going to be trying a lot of different things to keep them disinterested from your yard. Any questions on Javalina? A big fence, it works really well. Or the electric fencing, I gotta tell you, it's very, very effective. Okay, and we're moving down to smaller creatures. Let's hit gophers, squirrels, chipmunks, mice, pack rats. But we'll start with gophers. Because does everybody have gopher problems? Anybody? Yeah. When we lived out in Skull Valley, we were on 10 acres. So I used to call my husband the gopher hunter because he had like this whole system he used for gophers, and it was further out we would use poisons, closer in we would use the traps, and every morning he would go out, check his traps, and see what he had. The dogs would follow along. So it's, you got some options with the gophers. So the first and easiest is probably, they're coming out with some really good repellents. So this is a castor oil, and I forget the other, basically castor oil. So that, they don't like the smell of that, they know it's not good for them. So you could use this. This is, you put it on the ground, you put it out, and kind of water it in, so it's moving into the soil. They will stay away from it. You cannot use it in your vegetable garden, but you can use it around your vegetable garden. Use it as a perimeter. This is also, we're finding, pretty effective with ground squirrels, chipmunks, those kind of critter, skunks. Actually, so one of the gals here uses, she lives out in Paulden, and she's had very good success with it. You do have to reapply it about every 30 days, so it's not a permanent solution. But it certainly can help, especially if you're close to your house or if you have animals, those kinds of things you're concerned about them getting into poisons. I would try this. And we also have, I think we have another one coming in next spring that we're trying as well. But I've had people report very, very good success with this, and they come back and buy it again. That's how I know a product is effective, is that they're coming back and purchasing it again. So that can work, and I would definitely recommend trying it. And that's a mole max. The other, okay, so then we get into, well, we'll go to the traps next. These are gopher traps. I don't know how to set them. I don't want to learn how to set them. Kid does it. But you can use a trap. The trick with the trap is you've got to get it down into that tunnel, and you've got to have it tied to something else, like a board or something that they can't pull down in the tunnel with them. Because sometimes they'll just take that trap and then just go down in, and you never see your trap again. So you need to tie it to a piece of board or something. Traps can be very effective. He used traps a lot. He probably caught hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gophers using a trap. But, if you're squeamish, if you're, you're afraid of losing a digit in a trap, have someone else set it for you. I actually have a guy, his card's in the store, it's called Larry the Gopher Guy. I should ask him sometime how many gophers he has caught, because he'll actually go out and set the traps and do all that stuff. It's amazing, and they are effective. It wouldn't be my first choice, but that's me. I don't think some people don't care, but they do work. Then you get into your poisons. So this is zinc phosphate. Zinc phosphate does not have a secondary kill to it. So if the gopher eats the zinc phosphate, but comes up above ground for whatever reason, it's not going to kill your cat or your dog if they happen to eat it. Now, if a cat or a dog or a bird or a rabbit were to eat this up above ground, it would kill them too. It's a poison. You have to be careful with it. You want to get it as far into their tunnel as possible. That's where this handy little tool comes in. So you put your, oh, there's a spider. That's flying down. So you put your bait in here. You walk around, you see where you can usually see where the hole is because it has that very distinctive half circle mound of dirt that they kicked out of it. So the point, you don't want to put it right there because it's too susceptible to other critters getting to it. You want to find the tunnel further down in the tunnel. So you're poking. Sorry, he's looking at me like. You got to walk with it and you kind of poke. As soon as you find that give, where the ground just kind of gives away, that's when you just do a quick zip. And there's a little hole down at the bottom, so the poison comes out of the bottom of the hole. So you're getting it down in that tunnel, so you're keeping it away from other animals that you wouldn't want to have. So it's a bit of an investment, but they last forever. We've had some gopher probes that we've had probably 10 years or so. And it beats crawling around on your knees trying to find where that hole is. You could use like a dandelion pick or something just to find where the tunnel is. But if you don't want to be crawling on your knees, this is a very handy tool to use. If you know you have gopher issues, you just know they're out there, you're going to be doing some new planting. I recommend you use some type of either basket, you could use chicken wire. It can't be just one layer of chicken wire. It usually has to be crossed a couple of times. If you're putting in a raised bed garden, I would just say line it with some chicken wire down there. It's that preventative measure that you can use because gophers can sure do a lot of damage. If you just see your tree fall over, you know they've eaten all the roots off of it. So if you're using a barrier to prevent them from getting to them, they're going to eat some roots because it's going to grow beyond this, but they're never going to be able to eat enough to actually kill the plant. So chicken wire, gopher wire, basket. We're getting a new soft wire basket that will work for your plantings as well. So just kind of doing that preventative. You know you've got gophers out in your yard, you're putting a rose or a tree in that you're spending good money on, do a little bit of prevention on it. Anything else with gophers? There's not, people will say, well, go put mothballs out there, or coyote urine, there's everything, every repellent works to an extent. You just got to mix it up. There's that gopher plant, that used to be for a while, plant gopher plants all around your yard, keep the gophers out. Well, to some extent, it's not 100 proof. If you know you're out, they're out there, and you just got to be dogmatic about it. Gophers will take over a yard, given the opportunity. They're producing the babies, the mama pushes the babies out, and the babies go find another spot in the yard. So you just have to be very, very vigilant with gophers. You can't just go, oh, they're gone, because they'll come back, trust me. So pack rats and mice and that kind of stuff. You guys have pack rat issues? Yeah. We're trying to find a different, so we were just at a trade show, and every place we went to, they had these kind of things. We're like, well, it keeps pack rats out. And we're like, where's a trap for a pack rat? Because they're so big, you can't use your traps that you would use for a rat or a mouse because they just don't work. So kids moved on from gophers and now he's waging a pack rat battle in the yard. So we had this new set, dining room set that we bought for outside. That's a wood set that you pack up and you put away. Puts a cover over it. We went to pull it out the other day because we were having guests. It had dragged dog toys into that mess. It had like logs were in it. I was amazed what they had dragged in there. So they're big and they just love everything. So Kim was like, I'm gonna put traps out. So he got these bigger traps out. He had them by the table and he had peanut butter or something on them. This sounds horrible. But the dog came walking in. Not this dog, but we have a chocolate lab. She came walking in and she had one of these stuck to her lip. Oh. She was just like, we're like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, so you have to be careful with the traps. But he finally did get it. He found out where they were coming into the yard. They had chewed a hole in the fence. So he found it out. So he put 2 traps side by side, right by the hole, and he did get it. I mean, $100. There's others out there. But pack rats are they're kind of like the Javalina of the little rodent world. You know, they don't care. A lot of times people go, what's eating? It's eating my pepper. Why would it take my pepper? And it's not eating your pepper. It's taking it to line its nest. So they're eating things and chewing things off, not to eat, but to line their nest with. And they want anything and everything. If it's shiny, they want it. If it smells bad, they want it.
It's a doorstop there, man.
Yeah.
I've lost 3 of them.
3? So yeah, they'll take anything and everything. They love to, if you have an outdoor grill that you haven't used, they'll build a home in it. I mean,
They eat all the wires on our car.
yes, wires on the car. We have found some success using this product for the pack rats. There again, because they're cleaning, they're going to be cleaning themselves. This seems to be probably, if you're not going to use a trap, this seems to be the most effective for them. If you have a car that's sitting, people will put it like in a tuna can and put it up in the car. You have to replace it frequently and keep that smell going. But it does seem to be somewhat effective. If you have squirrels coming into the attic at certain points, putting this up in there in a holder will help. You know, it's not going to be 100%, but see, we're having very good success using this just to kind of keep them out of areas. So the traps and the repellents for pack rats seems to be pretty effective. This is a little mouse. Make sure I got the right one. Okay. So this is a little mouse repellent type thing. It's like a little sachet almost. Works pretty good. We put it in, we have some big tubs that we use to put our cushions in. This works pretty good. We throw one in there and it keeps them from wanting to come in. So it's a repellent, pretty effective, not 100%, but it's effective. The little mouse baits, these are the poisonous baits. Don't put them where your dogs and cats and grandkids and whoever else can get to them. You have to be careful.
The little sachets, do those have an odor?
Yes.
Is it,
It's
because like
not
some
bad.
people will put mothballs, you know, with,
To me, it's not nearly as bad as a mothball. You know, those.
yeah.
These aren't as bad.
Because I wouldn't want cushions to smell like mothballs.
No, yeah, no, they don't. No, we've used it for a couple of years and not. I don't open it up and go, oh, no smell. Anytime you're using a poison, just be really, really careful where you put it. Put it behind things, under, you know, where all your other animals can't get to it. You have to be responsible with that. Some people will use the traps, especially for squirrels, and maybe have a bigger trap for raccoons. And, you know, these are the have a heart, so they don't kill them, but you have to figure out what you're going to do with them once you got it in your trap. You know, if you've ever had a raccoon in a trap, oh my goodness. We used to use them out at the farm, and every once in a while we'd get a raccoon in there, or we'd get a skunk, which is even worse, because now you're like, you're going to move the skunk. So just beware, you're going to have to move it and deal with that little critter that's in there. We have a friend who lives out in Skull Valley that traps the raccoons and the squirrels. And he got to the point where he was spraying them with a can of spray paint on their tail. And he's like, okay, you know, I let them go, I take them off. They come back, and I know they're there, because that's when I do away with them. He goes, I give them a chance first. I'm like, oh, that's fair. So it's going to be that like I said, I know I'm being redundant when I'm saying this, but there's no one trick other than, harsh thing, shotgun, that kind of thing, that is always going to keep the critters out of your yard. You're going to have to try different things. You're going to have to mix it up, do plantings that you know are going to be that they're not going to want to go after. But this is going to be trying everything. Yes.
So when it comes to mice and pack rats, you don't really have a list of plants.
Because they really don't care.
No single strategy. It's not scent, it's not fuzziness.
They don't really care because they're, like I said before, they're not always just eating it. Sometimes they're cutting things off and laying in a nest with it. So we can't say, well, don't plant this because they don't really care. It's using the poisons, the traps, the repellents, figuring out, if it's up next to your house, maybe you don't want to use a poison, you want to try a repellent first. You're just going to have to try different things. And like I said before, it's going to be a constant. You're never just going to be able to go, oh, I'm done with pests. They're always out there. So you're going to have to be vigilant. You be out in your yard, be aware of what's going on out in your yard. If you got one gopher hole, take care of it right away, because if you don't, you're going to have 20 gophers, making a condominium in your yard. So you have to be vigilant on it. Any other questions? Yes.
You said chipmunks. Do they eat flowers?
They'll eat flowers, and you can try there again, staying in the herb family. Oftentimes will help. It's not 100%. Sometimes they don't eat the foliage, but they'll eat the flower. So it's just kind of, you gotta experiment with things too, see what they like.
Do you know if the chipmunks are active at night? Because we have a problem on our deck where we have a lot of potted plants, and we've got fencing around the plants with sharp edges or something that's still getting down in there and eating flower buds. And we don't know whether it's a rat problem or a chipmunk problem. Are they active at night or just during the day?
No, they're active at night too.
That time too?
Yeah. Because they want to come out where they know they're not going to be really disturbed, where they're little, they know people aren't around. So yeah, and the thing with chipmunks, and actually bunnies too, they can fit into a surprisingly small hole. You think, oh, there's no way they'll fit in there. They can. They're like little bees. They squeeze themselves through. So, that might be where maybe you want to try one of the repellents, maybe just even on the cage that you have around it, and see if that's enough to kind of deter them. Or they just go, I'm not going to bother, I'll move on.
Are the chipmunks, do they preen so that the green is okay?
Yeah. Yep.
That repels all, how long does that stinky smell last?
It dissipates probably after 3 to 4 days or so. Yeah. That's why I say don't spray it near your windows, your front. You want to be careful where you use it.
Do you have any problems with moles up here?
Moles?
Yeah.
The little micey guys?
I think that's what we have.
Could be.
I've been watching a little now, migrate from inside the yard to the other side of the yard. And,
Yeah. Yeah, we do. I find them occasionally in my big dog food bins. Occasionally I'll find them in there. So they're again keeping the yard cleaned up of anything they would want to eat, using the repellents. You may end up having to use the poisons. It's just, I'm not a big fan of using poisons. I love animals, but when it comes down to, you got to draw the line somewhere. All right. Any other questions?